rock garden's an essential feature in my garden, providing as it does a year-round interest. It really is amazing how a few pieces of weather-worn limestone and some tiny mountain flowers have transformed this corner of the garden. This is the corner of the garden that I come to browse in, because alpines, you've got to look at them in intimate detail. And immediately you start growing rock plants. You enter another garden scene entirely, because they'll grow on top of the stones, they'll grow in crevices between the stones, they'll actually grow out from underneath the stones, the ones that like moisture. When I look at it and think that this all started on a very, very windy day in spring, and the place I've chosen is an intrusion into the lawn. There, it's got all the light that's going, it's got the wind over it. The one thing that mountain flowers don't like is shade or being dripped on by overhanging trees or being moithered in by close, humid conditions. They want the wind through the hair. That's the thing that keeps them healthy. And to make sure they are happy, you've got to get the soil right. And that means getting rid first of all perennial weeds, because once the stones are in position, it's impossible to get rid of things like couch grass or dandelions and nettles. And then once you've done that, you add peat and sand. Peat to ensure moisture retention, to increase the fertility. And I add sand to improve the drainage, because if there's one thing alpines positively demand, good drainage. Nowhere will they stand stagnant soil conditions. All I've got to do now is put the stones in, and that's the bit to savour. This making of miniature mountain landscapes. Do it so that before you put a plant in position, it looks pretty. Then your alpine plants will like it. Don't use stones like concrete or broken bits of clinker, or even bricks out of the house. You want natural stones that have an affinity for the plants. And in limestone, which is the stone I'm using, there are fissures that the plants can actually grow on the stone by the roots exploring into the crevices in the limestone. And then the whole lot is married into the garden, into one miniature mountain landscape. And it really is a beautiful garden feature. Now, you don't start off with any set plan, just a heap of beautiful stones. You can do what you like with them as long as it looks natural. And I wear gloves, because limestone will tear your hands to pieces if you're doing a lot of shifting about. And you want one or two big blocks. Don't get them so big that you damage yourself lifting them. And you want a keystone. Not that one, that one. And if you look at it, it tells you really which way it wants to go in. You've got a face there. And you've got a face there. So you've got a corner point. You've got a bed, always on its broad face. And you've got the strata lines. Even in limestone, you've got strata lines. So that stone tells me it wants to go in like that. It wants to go in right enough, but it's a bit heavy to persuade. Rocks must be laid with bold lines, never curving lines, always bold, aggressive, sharp angles. Most expressive like that. Tip it back, and I'll need my spade. Take the soil away like that. I bury about an inch of the stone, not a third of it, just an inch. Nobody can tell how much is underground. You just bury the base so there are no crevices for mice to get under. Always tilt the stone back. Think of it as a great upthrust of rock out of the ground, being an extrusion of rock, always a bold face on the north or west side. And that's the way, if you go by nature, then there's no way you can be wrong. See that stone? Tilting back a little, ease it out like that. You've got a face there taking you into the ground as if it had been pushed up when the rock was being laid down. And then you fill in round it like that, quite firmly. It's beautiful already. And it tells me There, you see, there you've got the main bluff, the main quality of the rock, the main mountain formation. What you want to do is put another piece in front like that. You're hinting at the underlying rock strata and pick a piece that's weather-worn. That can fall away because the erosion, the elements have scooped it out, have sculpted it, and when you get crevices like that, a little bit of soil and you can put a plant in there. Just fill it round with soil. Don't bury it, you paid good money for it. And look at that little channel there. You could put a saxifraga in there that'd cascade out of there and look beautiful in bloom because the stone complements the flowers. This is the great thing about it. This is why you must never use artificial stone. And there's the beginnings of the mountain range. And I'm going to continue this line. This is a great upthrust of limestone. And you must continue the strata line right through. It's no use dotting them in here and there like an almond pudding. You've got to continue this straight line. That one there, that's the sort of thing we want. The stone we put in had a straight face. There's the bed, that part. There's the strata lines, which must carry on. It's no use putting that stone in like that to gain height. It wouldn't look right. It goes in that way. And that sits in. It goes in like a hand fitting into a glove when it's right. That's right, you see. There's a face, there's a face. They run together. Fill the soil round them. This is the top of the limestone escarpment. I want another stone in down that side, and that's the one by the look of it. There's the face. It's falling away naturally, and it's nicely weathered, and it weighs about half a ton. When you're lifting a stone, always lift, bend your knees, lift with your feet close together, and then you won't do any harm. Ooh. Don't worry about that. That's one of the problems with limestone. It tends to fracture. But I'll just bury that in soil. But look how that face is coming away there. The fissures following on, one in the other. Put the broken pieces behind. Put a bit of soil in to make sure it does work. It does work. And I can plant a crevice-loving alpine in there. So there's no real harm done. Now, that is supposed to be solid rock. But don't, whatever you do, make an alpine garden solid rock, because then there's no room for plants. But I want something nicely moulded. That one looks just about right. Now, that's nicely moulded. It's been a top piece. It's been battered by the wind and rain. The soft rock's worn away. It's beautiful without anything else. The little bits of moss and colouring and lichen, that will go on top, just in there. And I'm making shady pockets around the back where the primulas can tuck in and enjoy the cool moistness. And I'm making pockets around the front where the sun lovers. Just imagine a saxifraga sitting in there. It'll be as happy as it was in the mountains. Now fill in behind with soil. It's one stone that shouldn't be in there. Now, that looks like a solid rock escarpment. You look round the front, it's all falling away down into the back. We want a round top piece there. And that goes in. I want a little more soil in there just to lift it up. The whole thing is to create an illusion of a piece of limestone rock strata pushing up out of the soil. But I've got to finish off. I've got to bring that stone down now and lose it in here. This is the end of my little outcrop. And I've only got 2 stones left, so I'm spoilt for choice. And that one there looks as though it might fit in. Yes, I think it might fit in very nicely. You can really make the stone do. That's right. That's right. There's a right way and a wrong way. No, that's an awkward stone. Aha, aha. If I put him in like that, tilt that end up a bit. Now, fill in round the back of that. And very little of the stone that I brought for this is buried, and yet the illusion is still there of solid rock, solid limestone. And there you've got it falling away from the high point, down here, losing itself in the ground. I've got 1 stone left, and I want it for down there in the front as the part of the plateau, the initial base, the parent rock. And that's where it's got to go. Drop it in, after I've made the bed, of course. It's important to bed the things down, because when you start weeding about the rock garden, you're going to stand on these, and if they wobble, you're liable to finish up with a broken ankle. Needs to be tilted back. Put the soil in round it, and that just wants nicking back, that fraction, so it runs true with the face there. If you get it right, if it looks right before it's planted, then it'll look beautiful when it is planted. Now for the planting. This is the best bit. The hard work's done. Now you can be reflective, now you can be artistic, choosing the right place for the right plant. And permanent features like conifers need careful placing. Now there's no way could you put a pointed erect conifer like that on top of the rockwork. You'd destroy all the illusion you're trying to create. This is the pine wood down at the base of the mountain. So it goes down at the base of the mountain, in this corner. On top, you've got to plant the low-growing things that create the effect of windswept mountain summits. And the name of this conifer, it's the Noah's Ark pine. Grows very, very slowly. Even after 25 years, I've never seen a Noah's Ark much more than 2 feet high. So you're quite safe in putting that in there. Firm it in, labels blown away, get it back and put it there. Because inevitably, when you build a rock garden, people are going to come and look at the plants and they're going to say, what is that? And you ought to be able to tell them. I draw a plan. Once I've got it all planted, I draw a plan, and then I can take those white labels out, which are too conspicuous. And now you come to the place that I specially reserved and prepared for the abretia, red carpet. Now, don't despise abretia, it may be common, but it's very, very lovely. I don't know any plant that gives you quite as much flower. Good root system, the sign of a good plant, a quality plant. Planting it there, I give it room to spread. And if you trim it after flowering, it keeps it neat and compact. And because abretia flowers early in the year, I want a continuity of flower. I don't want a blaze of colour and then nothing. So campanula. This is one of the Carpaticas. It has blue flowers in June, so that gives me an extra season of interest. And it tells you how to propagate it. That all you do is pull the little side shoots out. So many of the alpines are very easy to increase. Now, wherever you've got a stone like that, you've got moisture at the base of it. Anybody who's picked a stone up on a dry summer day, you'll find moisture underneath it. The dampness there protected from the drying winds and the sunshine. Just the place for the alpine auriculus. This one rufous with a dark red flower and the yellow eye. I think the auriculas are particularly attractive because most of them have this contrasting eye. Put him down close to the stone where the moisture is. And the roots will explore underneath the stone. There's no question of it damping out. Now, there you have the broad pattern. Another conifer. Now, this one will get big. It's Elwoodii, but all I want to do is put that in there to create landscape for what? 5, 6 years. And by that time, I'll have rooted some cuttings, so I can lift the big plant out, take it somewhere else in the garden and put a little one in. Because all the time I must preserve the proportions. Once I get something too big in there, it destroys the whole illusion. Everything is out of proportion. Lovely glaucous blue-green foliage. See how tiny that is in proportion. Look at my fingers. That's the whole secret of good rock gardening. Everything must be in proportion. And there's a little crevice there, just made for a saxifraga. This one Irvingi flowers very early in the year. The flowers are pink when they open, they fade to white. But it needs perfect drainage, and that sort of crevice planting will give it that perfect drainage. Because if you don't, that rosette tends to open and the thing dies off. But that's so tight, it'll be on a starvation diet, and yet the roots can explore. They can go right down under the stone, find the nutriment. They look lovely against the pattern of the stone. This fissured limestone is ideal for this type of planting. Saxifraga Irvingi. The crevice there that I packed with soil previously is another place that suits the cushion-forming saxifragas. And this particular plant, Tumbling Waters, produces a long arching spike of flower. If you plant it on the flat, you don't get the beauty of it. By putting it in a crevice, it can arch out and you get the full beauty of the flowers. Bed it in there, firm it in. They make tremendous roots, some of these plants, enormous roots. If you're in any doubt, just get a piece of stone, nudge it underneath like that, and that holds the soil up. Tumbling Waters, what a lovely name for a plant. And on top of the stone there, you can see how it's fissured, how the crevices go right into it. Just the place for a house leek. They love it hot and sunny like that. Put a little bit of soil on. Don't want to get it used to too Spartan a diet. And I'll be a little bit vicious with this one. Break the roots down like that. For a little while, it might look just a trifle incongruous. But then it spreads out, the rosette tightens down, and you get a mass of these growing on top of the stone. Just the place for the Aethionema. Lovely thing with deep pink flowers. But the stems are delicate, and there's just enough protection there in the stone to shelter it. The grey leaves, the deep red flowers. Aethionema, this is Whalley rubra, and there is a Whalley rose, where the colours are softer. But this is a good, strong, violent colour. And there you've got white all round, so the stone, by contrast, throws the dark red of the flower back at you. In between the stones, Saxifraga. Good, strong, easy to please saxifraga is a good plant to start with if you're just beginning with an alpine garden. Now, by putting it in a position like that, I force this rosette formation to take place in this direction. In other words, I'm using the plant to blend those two stones together to give an even greater impression of solid rock formation with the plant growing on top. And now we work round into the more shady areas. You're getting round to the northwest side, and the mossy saxifragas. These, it seems quite incredible that that plant there is in the same family as the plant Irvingi in flower round the corner. Now, they like moisture. It'll have red flowers in due course. So that one can go in there. And there, it's absolutely right already, tucked in against the stone. The foliage is quite attractive. It's a lovely parsley green. I have a very soft spot for primulas because they're most attractive. The quality of the flowers, the quality of the foliage. But they tend to be a wee bit temperamental if they're not in the right place. And the right place for them is tucked up against a rock. Almost due north, that position, shaded from the worst of the wind. Lovely, lovely plants they are. Absolutely gorgeous. And that is freedom. And I've tended to concentrate up to now on the soft foliage things in the main. And I want something that's hard, low-growing and evergreen and that flowers. And what better than a helianthemum, a sunrose? And that's the position that it likes, up in the sun where it gets baked to a crisp. And that's what makes it flower. And by planting it in a position like that, it can cascade down over the rocks. And when that is in flower, and when it's in condition that suits it, it's a carpet, and the foliage is absolutely hidden by the profusion of yellow blooms. Lovely things they are. And that's what the rock garden looks like once the plants have all grown in and established. Ah, yes, I've extended it a little bit, but I've kept the same strata lines, the same proportion. In fact, I've extended it so much it's become a major garden feature, but it enables me to grow a lot more of the alpine plants that fascinate me and to give them exactly the conditions they enjoy growing in. It's already given me an infinite amount of pleasure. It'll go on giving me pleasure for years to come.